Hello there, and welcome to my studio. Yay, I'm so glad to see ya. We've been doing a lot of printmaking on clay, and we've done a lot of processes these last few weeks. We have done things like made some great underglaze ink way easy, and then we've also done some super easy screens. These are some that we did the last couple of weeks in our prior videos, and they're just done with sheer fabric and painter's tape and stickers. These were done with Elmer's glue and gluing construction paper on the fabric. So easy, and shocking how great the silk screens turned out. So they're ones that you might give a try because they really worked out great. But a lot of people will ask me, well, that all sounds great, and thank you for helping us decorate our slabs, but what do we do then? What are we going to do? Because my students, or when I work in the studio, I don't always work flat. I love working flat and then making my piece instead of doing it in reverse like most potters, where they'll make the piece and then design the piece. Remember, that being said, all these screens could be used on, say, the side of a slab pot. But if you're doing slabs like we've done, I'm going to show you today how to turn those slabs into fabs, into totally fabulous objects that you can easily make in your studio or in your classroom. So we're going to get started right now. What we're going to make is cylindrical cups, and we're going to do two of them today. The first one is going to be one that has a tripod foot, but we've got to get our slabs ready. Remember, we've been talking a lot about decorating slabs, and if you haven't seen the prior videos, you might just want to check them out. This is one that we did on transfer prints. What we did is we took the underglaze, we printed it onto the newsprint, we let it totally dry. Now we're ready to transfer it, and we're transferring it using casting slip. There is a variety of ways you can do this with slips, but remember, casting slip, the reason you want to dry it is it dries out really, really quickly. So it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for these pieces to dry. I'm doing it for a demonstration. I'm just going to coat them all. I would suggest if you do it yourself, you do it a little bit at a time. Look, they've already turned leather hard. Of course, fast forward on the time for us. But now I can take these leather hard pieces and put them face down on my smooth slab. So I really made sure that was smooth before I started. And I'm going to just flip them over, and now I'm going to take a brayer and roll them into place. What I also do is I like to take a sponge and wet the back. I find that helps it transfer a little bit. And then I take a rib or a scraper, and I'm going to just scrape across the top. You'll see sometimes it gets a little stubborn. I don't worry about it too much. Some of it's going to be cut off, and you're working white on white, so a lot of it doesn't show up. I kind of like the look of it sometimes, but you have to decide what you want. But you can go in there and re-wet it and scrape it down a little bit. But the colors are so vivid and bright, they just work out great. Now we're ready to make our cup. What are we going to use? We're going to use a pool noodle. So easy. So we're going to take a pool noodle, we're going to wrap it in newsprint and tape it. Now I want to cut it about the size, so you can decide how much measuring you want to do, but you do need to leave some at the bottom to make the foot. You want to protect the surface, so take your saran wrap or any plastic, cover it over. I usually roll it because I really want to get all those edges down. Notice that my slab is wider than my pool noodle, very important, and I've cut just enough slab to overlap them. So you want a little bit of overlap, but again, you want extra for the foot. Now, you can cut these at a 45-degree angle, but what I do is I just press them at a 45-degree angle. And I find, especially with students, that works great. Now, I can go in here. I've got the plastic on there to protect the surface, and I can go in here and seal that seam and just remove any extra off. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to make a triangle with my hands, score it, slip it, and start pressing it together and kind of smearing the parts together. It never fits exactly in that point. So what I do is I take a little lid on a piece of plastic and I pop out this little circle pattern that matches the side of my cup. I love that. And it makes a great little accent on that bottom. Put it on, give it a little twist till it sticks. Do any cleanup with a wet brush that you need to. Pull the pool noodle out, pull the paper out, and then you've got your sides. Now sometimes I will also attach this way. Sometimes I'll do it before or after I do the foot. You can now take the plastic off if you'd like, but if you're worried about the sides, leave your plastic on. Now I'm going to take some little bitty coils and I'm going to push those coils into the seams on the interior of the cup. And I want to take a wood modeling tool or a popsicle stick and smooth them, and then I use a wet paintbrush to then clean it up in there, and then a little plastic on the rim, and wow, I just love those cups. All right, that's cup number 1. Fast, easy, looks fabulous. This is another one. Now this has got a pretty expensive template that I'm going to use. Yes, McDonald's coffee cup, because we love some McDonald's coffee. So take your cup and cut it apart and use that as your template, because it's great. It gives you the sides, the bottom. You're good to go. So you cut the bottom off, cut up that side seam, and then flatten it out. Now you can use this right on your slab, or you can trace it and make a little bit better template if you want to. Okay, so we've patterned our slab and we're going to use a moist slab. So you can see I'm printing on it. Now, again, a little plastic wrap to really make sure that surface stays nice and smooth what's going to be the inside of the cup. So we want to make sure that that looks pretty good. We're going to take a little extra plastic wrap and we're going to just encase that in the plastic. Why? Because now we can take a Sharpie and trace our template. Remember, leave a little bit on either side to overlap. And then trace your cup the size that you want. Then you can take a pair of scissors and you can just cut it out, just like you would, say, a piece of fabric. Because you've encased it in the plastic, it leaves these really nice edges, and it's so fast and so easy. Now you'll see I'm rubbing either side. I'm not going to cut those 45-degree angles. I'm just going to press them because they basically do the same thing. And you know, I don't mind if that seam shows a little bit. I really kind of like it. And I'm going to score both sides. Just peel that plastic up, give it a little score, give it a little slip, and then I can overlap it. And it works great because remember that plastic on the outside is protecting all your patterning. So you can really press that seam and really get it to attach. So now, sometimes again, this is how I'll do. I'll press it with my fingers, or sometimes I'll use a little roller with a stick on the inside to get a good surface. I do a lot of cleanup with a wet brush when I'm making all my pottery. Once you have that done, then you can remove the plastic out of the inside and you can go in there and smooth the seam to make sure it's well attached. But I can tell you, after making many of these, as long as you get your seam well sealed, you're okay. Now, remove your plastic. You can leave it on there a little longer if you prefer, but once I feel comfortable, I can leave it off. Now, I'm going to trace around the bottom. I didn't use the bottom of the cup because I want to make sure that it's going to fit my cup, not that paper cup. And look at that, I'm cutting it just a little bigger than the bottom of the cup because I want to roll that up onto the side to make sure it's sealed. So I'm going to make sure I see which way it's going to fit, because remember, it's handmade. It only kind of fits one way. So, and if you need to, just trim off some excess, because you only want a little bit. Don't cut it exact. You only want a little bit larger. We're going to go in here. We're going to score both sides. We're going to add a little bit of slip. And then when you put your cup down, give it a little twist and you'll feel it kind of stick. And then you can clean it up on the inside with a damp paintbrush, just water. And you can do that on the outside as well. You can, I'm not going to put a coil inside here, but you can add a small coil to the interior. But the reason I cut this bottom a little bigger is I want to paddle it and just paddle it on and up the sides. I can also do that by rolling it on the table. So I can take it, go in here, clean up, but rolling it on the table I find gives me a great edge, very low tech. I don't need a lot of tools, and I don't really worry about messing up my design too much. So wow, that cup works so good. Clean your edge. It can also be cleaned a little bit later, and make sure that it's all well sealed on the inside, and voila, you are done. This is the tripod cup that I did. I love it. I think it is just so great. It has that little button on the bottom, and since you have the tripod, you don't have to worry about it getting rocky. This is the one that I did, and I rolled up the side. This is why I cut that bottom a little bigger. I didn't put a coil on the inside. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You might want to do it if you think you need it. But I love these little printed cups. They work great. And I cleaned the rim. Remember, this has got to be really nice and clean if somebody's going to use it. It has to be very welcoming. But if you forget to do that, take a green scrubby wet when this is bone dry and just go in here and clean that up a little bit, and it'll be great to drink out of. So I hope these are things you can use in your classroom or in your studio. So what's next? Oh, what's next is we've got to talk about doing some glazing, because we've got all these great forms and they're printed. You can obviously use a clear glaze on them, but why when you have so many options? So we're going to talk about that next time we meet, and I'll see you then.